It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
The stars of the sea. They are killer whales. In their native habitat, the ocean, killer whales are as distant and mysterious as the stars in the sky. But human beings have netted a few of these stars, hauled them in and put them in tanks where they gamble with their human
thesis here, Dr. Farrell, sir.
Well, sir, first of all, George is right in one thing, that is certainly men have a lot of sexual fantasies and a lot of sexual desires. What is wrong is that men also have a tremendous amount of need for intimacy. In fact, the more successful we become, the more lonely we tend to become. If you and I are very successful and I'm saying to you, I would really like to, I'm fearful about doing this new show, and that gets off to the boss, I can't talk vulnerably and openly to you, otherwise it's going to hurt my success. So when I marry, one of the things I want is a friend, a loved one, somebody to support me, somebody to be close to me.
Yeah.
And it hurts me if I don't have that. So I make a transfer when I commit. I transfer from an ideal of Playboy and penthouse to the desire for intimacy.
But I surrender something in so doing, true?
I surrender my Playboy and penthouse fantasy. When men can...
What do women surrender, just curiously?
Women don't really surrender anything, which is why women are so commitment-focused. And particularly in 1987, women basically get three options when they commit to a successful man. They get the option to work full-time if they find that fulfilling.
Yeah.
The option to be full-time involved with the family if they find that fulfilling. Or the option to combine whatever combination of both they find fulfilling whatever sequence they want.
Now, hang on a second. What are the options of the male?
Yeah, men have three different options. Option one is to work full-time. Option two is to work full-time. And option three
is to work full-time.
And how do you feel about that, Brother Gilder?
That's the way it has to be if you're going to have a prosperous and productive society. There's been no sign whatsoever of the emergence of a new man who doesn't have to work full-time. Women do not want men to be equal economically. Women want men to be superior economically. And you can tell this by the fact that today in marriages that stay together, in successful, intact marriages, women still earn less than 1/5 of the family income. This is less than they earned when the United States was a farm society, and women worked a lot harder on the farms and produced more of the family income.
Well, what would you like to ask him? I mean, I can't imagine that you...
George, you're right in the sense that women still marry up. But the question of our generation is, for thousands of years, it was very functional for successful men to compete against each other to get the scarce resources, marry the women who are the most attractive women and the men who could best kill each other off, produce good offspring, and we had a survival of the species. But now, with the ability to kill each other off and nuclear technology combined, what that leads to is a potential destruction of everyone. For the first time in human history, we have to begin to develop traits of love rather than traits of victory and violence. Otherwise, as Darwin taught us, a species that does not adapt to its changing environment makes itself extinct.
But how does his thesis promote this terrible apocalyptic view?
Well, his thesis, I think, says it's fine for men to continue their orientation to trying to become different types of heroes, because when we continue that orientation, we get the approval of women, we get married to women, and we get tamed. It is true that we get the approval of women when we continue our, I'm biggest author, you're biggest show host, you're biggest economist, and that type of thing. This is all our form of male competition.
Yeah.
And women love it. I mean, you're much more, powerful and adored by women now than you were before you were a talk show host. And and if somebody is a Phil Donahue look-alike and they say that I'm a very talented, more talented than Phil Donahue, and I'm warm and tender and open and vulnerable, the women will not pay attention to him, and men know this. Okay, so where do we go with this?
I'm trying to figure... Go ahead, make your point.
My point is the barbarians have to be tamed. The way they get tamed is by marriage. The short-term, compulsive, aggressive male sex drive gets subordinated to the long-term, maternal sexuality of women.
In matrimony?
In matrimony. The man is tied to the future of the race. The link of the man to the future passes through the womb of a woman.
Right. And the feminist movement undermines this natural taming process by delaying marriage?
Yeah, by delaying marriage and not saying no during the 20s.
The feminist movement did just the opposite of that. The feminist movement was a reaction. The feminist movement said, For the first time in history, marriage is no longer economic security. I, woman, married to you, up until 1960, had economic security. Suddenly, the woman looked at the world and said, this marriage looks like it could end in divorce, and many marriages around me could end in divorce. Before that, if the woman was, if society discriminated against them for the man, who benefited from the discrimination for the man? The wife benefited from it. Before that, she was the economic ally of the man. As of the 1960s, with divorce, she became the economic enemy of the man. And so there was competition in a place where there was cooperation before.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you respond to Brother Gilder's thesis that it is true the women are marrying later?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the consequences, if I'm understanding your position, is that as women get into the 30s and single,
Mm-hmm.
they become an army which, generally speaking, threatens 40-year-old and 50-year-old married men.
Mm-hmm. That's
You
true.
believe that?
Yes, it is true. But Phil...
So what we want to do then to retain monogamy is go back to 21-year-old people getting married so that we're all sort of committed and not so free to go out and tempt other people. Is that
No, wrong
The
conclusion.
crucial thing is that the powerful men not be applauded and for leaving their wives as they grow older and marrying young women, because there are two victims. One are the older women who can't get remarried most of the time, and the other are young men. And young single men are the barbarians who invade every society. Young single men perpetrate over 90% of all the violent crimes.
Yes, they do.
They are the addicts. They're the
They're the
propagators
guys at the
of...
football game without a shirt,
But
with a can of beer that's about this big.
And those people don't build a society that can compete productively with Japan, for example.
But George, we have...
They earn
But is it
a
the
little
women's
less...
movement that's caused this?
That's the wrong conclusion.
No.
We have the cart before the horse here. It is true, if we want to get to the bottom of our problem is, I think, first we have to stop addicting every single male in American society with the 20 million images of the beautiful woman that's put before us, whether it's in Ms. Magazine or the Playboy magazine or Penthouse.
Well, that's a lot.
So that every, well, we won't be able to do that easily, but but if we have a man walking into 7th grade and the guy looks around in 7th grade and says, the 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade girl is not paying attention to me, she's paying attention to the 12th grade boys, the jocks.
Then the 7th grade boy is going to what?
He's going to feel unequal to her, and he's going to basically feel that the way I can earn my way to equality to this 9th grade beautiful girl's attention is by performing. That is like knocking my head against on the football field to find out who gets the most spinal cord injuries, to see who can score the most touchdowns. I have to pay for her attention. I have to actually ask her on a date to pay to get equal to her. We know anyone who pays for somebody else's attention, the man is basically saying, I feel unworthy of you until I pay for your time.
Right.
And he's right. He's right, because he's inferior sexually to her.
He's not inferior sexually. His sex has been kept...
He's optional sexually. Just a few powerful men could beget all the children to sustain the society.
Yeah. But why would, excuse me, but what acculturation took place to encourage a 7th grade girl to be interested in an 11th grade boy?
It's a combination probably of genetics and socialization. I mean, women see around them all the time. First of all,
older men are more interesting to women, aren't they?
It's not so much that they're more interesting, is that on the average they're more powerful, they're more successful. The 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy has not proven himself except by metaphor. Maybe on the football field he proves himself.
And very few males have that option, we should say.
Exactly.
I mean, most of us didn't make the football field.
And you know, the point that George is making about sex is very fascinating too. We're football players in different types of ways. We're here on on a show. That's our version of football. But the important thing is the sexuality also. The average man I found in working with 300 men's and women's groups takes an average of 150 risks of rejection between first eye contact and first intercourse contact.
It was 156 for me.
For you, yes.
And I remember every one of them.
Yes.
All right, and your point is what? That the society has set us up. I will never forget the time I walked all the way across the dance floor, and I said, may I have, and she said, no. And all my buddies saw this. And I had to walk all the way back across the, I mean, I still have nightmares about that.
That rejection...
And there isn't a male, I don't think, gets through adolescence without that experience. Now, what's the point? So what?
The point is the man has to perform to get women. And that is the reason he performs. And if the woman is available to him too readily, he doesn't perform. Single men earn only a little bit more than half as much money as married men of the same age and credentials.
And we have a culture which is promoting singleness among young males.
But George,
And with that comes a loss of self-esteem. I'm trying to understand your point, George.
Right.
And so we have a lot of unattached males out there who are quite literally not being tamed.
That's right.
And they make a mark on our society in various antisocial ways, which create a welfare problem, etc.
AIDS problem.
Huh?
AIDS problem.
You think homosexuality is promoted by this?
Sure. And anthropologically, there is almost a complete correlation between societies that have polygyny, that is, the powerful men can have a series of young women.
And there's a lot of gays in those societies.
Yeah, those precise correlation. Exactly, the societies that have polygyny also have conspicuous homosexuality.
So you want to go back to the 50s, when if you weren't married by the time you were 24, your mother started a novena. Right? Remember how nervous they were at 24? My God, they're not married. What's the matter? You'd like to do that, would you?
That's better, yeah.
But
you get to see your grandchildren and
you're
grow
not
up.
right. You're not having children when you're 50.
And the woman can have a better career because after her children are born, she lives longer than the man, and she can have a long, uninterrupted career.
Well, make your case against. What do you say to respond to that?
First of all, if the feminist movement were more successful, one of the things that would be able to be saying to women is, women, you can support yourself. You don't have to look toward the powerful man. Women, you can be sexually free as well as economically free. And what I find, Phil, is that when I reverse roles, I start getting women and men to understand this. I do role reversal dates, and one of the things I ask women to do is to experience what men go through. So I ask women to go up, ask men that they don't know whether or not they're interested in them out on a date. The women reach out, and I ask them to at least kiss the man. Well, for the first time in the woman's life...
Kiss the guy?
To at least...
You mean after the date?
No, no, during the date. This is actually one of these things where, like, say I'm the woman and I go up to you.
Yes.
Well,
but I'd get the wrong message if she kissed me in the middle of the date. I mean, to me, that would be too aggressive.
Oh, well, okay, but that's the point. She has to decide whether you would get the wrong message, whether if she kisses you at the end or versus the middle versus the beginning.
And what's instructive about that?
So what's instructive about that is that she starts getting very nervous, is unsure about whether or not he's even interested in her.
So she gets to feel how the guys have felt all these years.
Precisely. So she starts acting like a jerk. And she doesn't, and suddenly she sees why guys act like jerks, and she doesn't listen to a word the guy says.
Guys act like jerks because
they put their egos in the line, they fear rejection, they reach out, they take risks, and if they, say for example, a guy reaches over to kiss a woman, and the woman says, I'm interested in you, but not so fast, man, you have railroad sex on your mind. And what I'd like to do is maybe go a little bit more slowly. So she withdraws her tongue. The guy makes a decision. Do I continue? Do I press? If I press, the upside is that maybe there'll be a bit more chemistry. The downside is that she'll think of me as obnoxious and an acquaintance rapist. If I back off, I'm thought of as being sensitive. On the other hand, if I back off a few times, I might be thought of as a wimp.
So we've got males then between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly, right.
And that's inevitable. That's life isn't a social experiment.
But he wants to know, why do men have to take most of the risks? That's the point.
Why do you want to put us in such a powerless position,
because we are.
Because I just barely survived this. You know, I mean, I myself I'm grateful I'm walking around
in ourselves. We are unnecessary sexually. So we have to perform and support families in order to gain our participation.
But when you say perform, you really do open up a tremendous door to, if you say perform, then you inevitably commit a certain percentage of the males who are not going to perform well enough. And the result is alcoholism, drugs, wife abuse, all those other bad things.
It's much worse if you have a liberated society where powerful men can assemble their harems. Then there is a large number of young men who mathematically can't find young women, and that is destructive.
So
because then all those effects that you describe arise from the breakdown of monogamy, breakdown of monogamous marriage, which is the source of civilized society.
I look at this differently, Phil. I think that for thousands of years, marriage's purpose was in stage one, marriage meant economic security. For the first time in history, marriage's purpose is being redesigned, and we're saying the purpose of marriage is not economic security anymore, it's personal fulfillment and happiness.
And you like that?
Baloney.
And I think no, I think for the first time, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're 20% there. but we've made some progress, and we're going backwards and forwards at the same time. But if we don't move to that stage, I think we will destroy the human species.
Marriage has to be an economic institution. That's the basis of it. It's men supporting women and children. And by supporting women and children, they gain access to children who are otherwise beyond their reach.
And if a man has a child in his 20s, the taming influence...
He can't have a child.
George,
if he's a father's a child, you know what I mean.
Right, yeah.
George, with nuclear technology...
I'm sorry.
with nuclear...
Forget nuclear technology.
No,
we can just...
forget nuclear technology, George. With nuclear technology...
It has nothing to do with this subject.
I think he's suggesting that if we don't at least strive for an egalitarian world, then we're going to have more Rambo features manifested in the human male of the species, and the result will be... if somebody drops a bomb on my neighborhood, I can't even be brave.
Right.
I can't even be brave. And it's reflecting itself in war today. The Marines who died in the billet didn't even have a chance to be brave. Neither did the guys on the Stark. So we really do appear to be shaping a world in which the traditional heralded virtues of maleness don't even get a chance to act themselves out.
Except in IBM, in entrepreneurship, in aggressive economic activity of the sort that still drives economic progress all around the world. But that happens only through marriage. Only through marriage.
Only through marriage will IBM have responsible vice presidents working for the good of the corporate...
The overwhelming majority of successful men are married. Just overwhelming. Single men earn only a little more than half as much money as married men of the same age and credentials.
Here are two views about where we may or may not be going regarding the sexes and our culture and marriage and the corporate life and war and peace, too. Do you have a daughter? How do you feel about this, and where might you be found in this dialogue? We'll give this Connecticut audience a chance to get in just a moment.
Very good.
Pie for dinner. Nobody has pie for dinner. We're gonna. Mom told me. What are we having for dessert? Peas.
Peas are in the pie. Tuna, too. It's a surprising new way to turn tuna into a delicious meal.
New Tuna Helper Tuna Pot Pie. Vegetables in a creamy sauce with an easy pourable crust that bakes up tender and flaky.
If it's pot pie, how come it's not in the pot?
Tuna Helper's gonna change your tuna about tuna.
With new Tuna Helper Tuna Pot Pie, the dinner pie.
When some people find out that Oscar Mayer honey ham has always been only 25 calories a slice, they dive right in. For some people, hearing that Oscar Mayer oven roasted turkey has always been less than 25 calories a slice calls for an encore. I have been known to go on about why Jimmy Dean sausage is the best-selling sausage in the country. I say things like quality, finest pork, finest spices. All that is true. But you ask the people who made it #1, the people who buy it, why do you like Jimmy Dean sausage? And you know what they say? Very simply, they say, because we think it tastes the best. I ain't gonna argue with that. Taste for yourself why Jimmy Dean is America's favorite sausage.
Tonight, Marshall Kramer, company vice president and church deacon, will have a few drinks after dinner and give his wife a black eye. Tonight, once again, Alice Summers won't be able to stop crying long enough to fix her children's supper. And tonight, Frank Boswell will spend the night at the drugstore because he can't remember his way home.
You okay?
If someone you love needs help, don't wait until it's too late.
Call Charter Hospital of Albuquerque, 265-8800.
You gotta let me know. What do you think about all this?
Well, I have kind of a personal question for each of the gentlemen. Are you married? If so, how long? Is it a first wife?
Are you now, or have you ever been?
I've been married for over 10 years. First wife, 4 kids, one of whom, Melly, has just learned to read.
Brother Warren.
I'm single, was married for 10 years, and actually my former wife was vice president of IBM, which we were referring to in the program.
Thank you very much.
Does that color your views about how they feel about life? Or where are you on this debate?
Well, I'm kind of an old-fashioned person.
Tell me.
Well, I've been married 27 years to the same man, and I retired when I got married.
And nobody's going to read your book either, are they?
That's okay.
I mean, isn't that, you don't care. I mean, what is it that you don't get any attention?
That's okay. I'm here.
Yeah.
That gentleman there that says you don't get married till you're 24. Sir, I got married at 29. I sold my oats, and we've been married for 43 years now with 4 great children and 6 grandchildren.
How old was she when you got married?
I won't talk on that.
You don't have to.
It's the women.
Yes, ma'am.
I wouldn't be married now unless I had asked my husband out, and I also chose a man 3 years younger than myself.
Good for you. Phil, let me deal with that for a second. I think that one of the major solutions to the great American male shortage is women looking around at a party, women saying, there's a man who listens, not there's a man who performs, going up to that man saying, I'd like to meet you, getting his number, calling him the next morning, and if necessary, taking sexual initiatives. You'll find a lot of men who are sensitive, warm, open, and tender. Did you find that type of man?
Webb.
Oh, very much so. In fact, he was so shy, he couldn't ask me out. But after that first date, we've been together ever since. But he says now, if I hadn't asked him out, it wouldn't have happened.
Precisely. If every woman in America hears that, many women will be much happier.
How does George feel about this?
Well, the first point is that it's women who should marry young rather than men necessarily. I mean, the crucial thing is women have precious years of sexual power during their 20s when they can marry the man they want to marry. Well, if they wait pursuing their careers, then they have to take whoever's left
They get a little
over.
rough around the edges, and they're not quite as sexually attractive on the open market. Is that the point, Mr. Gilder?
Pretty much. That's put crudely.
No,
Phil,
I was just going to add to that. Well, I'm a little older than I look. I'm 32, and you know, that's not, most women want to get married a lot younger. And I have girlfriends my age who are single, and there's no one in the near future, but they're a little concerned, and they're a little bit more looking towards asking somebody out who interests them.
Yeah.
Also,
and how old are the men they're asking out?
sometimes a little bit younger, but it also goes a little bit older. I mean, I don't think that they're trying to be right in with that very same age. It's whoever looks interesting.
All the men over 40 are either fat, alcoholic, or married.
But
Maybe.
Here's the dirty...
Yeah.
Well, you know, you were saying that we have to tame these young men. It's not my job to tame young men, and they are responsible for themselves. I'm not going to go around wasting my time looking, you know, to
But you're
to
wrong.
tame
It
these
is
young
your
men.
job.
No,
That's what you don't understand. And when you don't understand that, you'll get exploited by a series of powerful men. That's what'll
I have
happen.
a wonderful husband who's taking care of 2 3-year-olds right at this minute.
Terrific.
And it's not pertinent at all. I just think it's baloney.
I think the exploitation comes more from the different addictions. Go ahead.
Can't you give men a little bit more credit? You're saying almost that man is a beast.
That's another...
And man is not a beast. He's a reasoning man with an intellect, and he can make decisions and choose not to be barbaric.
He can, but...
Warren makes a point that we've taken our hits for appearing to be anti-male. And I don't get any particular joy out of that criticism. But Warren Farrell steps forward with academic credentials to make, among other things, the point that men do feel rather abused today.
Yes.
Males feel that nobody likes us. We're thought of as interested in only one thing.
And I think that maybe...
And of course that's not true. And we are a kind of barbaric, selfish, while you're up, get me a beer kind of people. And is there evidence to...
And that's because we work very hard. And our work, our willingness to work, we do. We work in the workplace.
George, are you ready to trade your wife in for a younger woman?
No, I'm not.
Well, then is that going to make... Basically, you're saying that's going to make men better and more barbaric and more wonderful people. I mean, I don't understand then. What is the point?
He's saying that the more women's lib influences women, younger women, the more...
They can chase me.
They can chase him.
The young women can chase me.
And threaten his family.
But that's okay?
No,
he's
it's not okay. I oppose it. I believe in monogamous marriage, religiously enforced. And I think that's the basis of civilized society. But that does mean that the man will devote more of his time to the workplace. His chief goal will be supporting that woman and children. And that role in the family unleashes tremendous energies, technologies.
That solution is an absolute setup, George, because here's what it does.
It's the only solution.
Well, excuse me for a moment. One possible ability of another solution. Say I get married to a woman in this audience, and we have children. For the first time in our life, we have a chance of sharing our intimacy and our communication with our children. At that moment, she is 43 times more likely to take off for 6 months or longer to take care for those children. She gets paid by my check for intimacy. I get paid for being away from intimacy. And what happens in that process is we end up with divorce training. She wants more love from me and tenderness from me at exactly the point in time that I feel more economic responsibility.
But your system doesn't work, because the more money the woman earns as a share of the husband's income, the more likely divorce is to occur. You know those statistics.
That's for the wrong reasons, though, George. Divorce has occurred because thousands of women, when they saw divorces happening at a larger number, started to say, I want to start looking for the possibility of earning income. When they could earn income, they started saying, I have a say in this relationship, and they started moving toward a new definition of marriage.
Right. And what happened then?
And that marriage, the new definition was personal fulfillment, and the woman was saying, I am not fulfilled. But the old question, Phil, was never personal fulfillment, so the expectations got raised much more quickly than they could be met.
Is George right that show me a two-career family and I'll show you a divorce?
No, I
not that simple, but show me a two-career family and I'll show you a greater likelihood of divorce. Certainly that's a far greater likelihood of divorce.
So
all the feminists acknowledge that.
But wait a minute, for different reasons, though. The woman who is a career woman, say she's a medical doctor or a lawyer, what does she do? She doesn't marry a man who's soft and tender and open, who's a nurse or a secretary. She marries another super career man. And so when one super career woman marries a more than super career man, neither of them have a relationship. They're both in their own orbit. They don't communicate with each other.
So what do we do?
So what do we do?
What's the RX
solution one is to say to women, first of all, and for men to be able to say to women, listen, I am not your paycheck. When I take you out, I am not going to symbolize the fact that I can earn more than you can. I want you to live up to what you're saying you want me to live up to, which is characteristics of intimacy, caring, and listening. And if I'm going to live up to that, I might just as easily be the person who stays at home with the children, who shares the child care with you while you work, but don't force me into the option of having to be your paycheck.
And what's wrong with that,
George? All your feminist women won't marry you under those circumstances. Gloria Steinem doesn't go out with flower children. She goes out with real estate tycoons.
You are exactly correct. You're correct. But see, now, George is correct here. Right now, women also have something to learn from men who have to have the guts to stand up and say, Gloria Steinem's and the women like you, stop marrying the top real estate people. Lots
of luck, Warren.
Why?
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, it seems unfair that these women who've marched in the trenches should now be told on a television talk show who they should marry. I mean, it doesn't seem fair.
Only who if they should marry if they want the intimacy. Men who are highly focused on success.
Wealthy, powerful men don't really give good intimacy.
That's correct. For this, Phil, for this reason. No, wait a minute.
And they're probably lousy lovers too, huh?
Wait a minute. Phil, for this reason, one of the chapters that I wrote in Why Men Are the Way They Are was a chapter which helped, I think, us to understand that if you and I are arguing at work, it helps me to listen for a couple of seconds, pick up the gist of what you say, and then start forming a comment in my own mind's eye while you're talking.
Right.
If I go home to my loved one, and I listen for a couple of seconds, form in my own mind's eye a solution to her problem, she does not feel listened to, heard, opened up, or she doesn't feel somebody is there for her. Yet at work, if I draw out the best that you have to offer, I get you promoted and not me promoted. The process of falling in love with the most successful men often means falling in love with characteristics that go along with not learning how to take no for an answer.
Being able to support the kids.
That include not taking no for an answer.
Not taking no for an answer, not listening as effectively.
So women go for powerful men because they have all the answers.
No,
they can support the kids.
I want to understand this. Because what?
They go for powerful men because we haven't taught women to economically support themselves to the extent of their dream. The best-selling magazines to women are Better Homes and Gardens and Family Circle. The average woman's career does not create the better homes and gardens that they fantasize. And so men become success objects just like women become sex objects.
George, I interrupted you.
That's the essence of it. Men are success objects because they can't be sex objects. Men do not have the elaborate maternal sexuality that women have. Because men cannot be sex objects, cannot bear children, which is the ultimate sex act, they have to perform for women in order to connect themselves to the long time horizons of female sexuality.
Yeah, that will be self-perpetuating too. The reason that the little boys aren't gonna, be maternal and mothering is because they have a father that's at work all day, and all they have to look at is their mother. They have no good role model.
You have twins?
No, I don't, but I have a 3-year-old, and his father spends a lot of time with him, and I also work, so that I don't have to be home with the little boy all day long, and my husband won't have any time to be with him.
And
he won't have a good role model.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
A tradition you've come to expect. Besson's Arts and Crafts Fair. It's this Saturday and Sunday in Corrales, and you're going to love it. Fine arts, wonderful collector's animals, quilts, pottery, wind chimes, porcelain, beadwork, woodworks, sheepskin slippers, stained glass, leather crafts, and for the tummy, Indian fry bread, pozole, and green chili stew. Besson's Arts and Crafts Fair, this weekend in Corrales. Don't miss it.
Territorial house salsa, thick with the flavor of New Mexico.
Over the years, many things change, but the con is always with us. Home repair may be more costly than you think. You could lose your home in contract frauds. Medical frauds may keep you from seeing a doctor. Before you give your money, learn how to spot a con artist. Call 768-2180 today and join the crime prevention family.
Service Scope, a new spirit in New Mexico.
A smile is still a smile.
He insists on making mountains out of molehills. He wants you to wear a padded bra?
A slam is still a slam.
You're a bitter little person, aren't you?
Some things only get better as time goes by.
How's life in the fast lane, Normie?
Beats me. I can't find the on-ramp. Cheers. 5 times a week.
We're talking monster less.
Play it again, Sam.
Tonight at 6:30 p.m. on TV 13.
Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hi. My concern is with your saying that women's role is to tame the man. If the man cannot tame himself, it only seems to me that 20 years down the road, the woman is going to be tired of having the job of taming the man. The man is going to look, she's going to look elsewhere to do her job, and the man is going to go look for someone else to, again, try to tame him.
By that time, he is tamed. He's linked
No, he's not. If the man can't find his own self-worth in taming himself.
With children, and he is part of a fabric of society.
What happened to this nuclear family that you celebrate so much? I have to tell you, I miss it in myself.
Right.
I miss it, you know, where Mom baked cookies and Dad got off the bus at 5:30 and all the kids ran. It's still there and they're happy.
Look at this. Yeah, they are happy, and they are leading the society today. They're all the most productive units in the society.
What about women that want to go to college?
There's no reason women can't go to college.
But when they get out of college, they want to go out and use the education.
Helen Lopata.
And what are they going to do, get married?
Made a very interesting study called Occupation Housewife, in which she showed that housewives use their education more fully in their lives.
That's fine as an option.
Than do working women or working men who have to submit to some particular regimen at the office every day.
That's fine as an option, George.
And women have varied engagement in the community.
Well,
they have
let Dr. Farrell make his point.
That's fine as an option, but the basic setup, I think, comes more from the fact that we addict men to this image of the beautiful women, and we then tell the most beautiful women not to really worry that much. You can get your source of income either from men or from marriage or a number of things, so you don't have to focus that much on work. What ends up happening for men and women in the nuclear family is this. Imagine if you're a woman and you fell in love with a man who was the president of General Motors, and each year he got a demotion so that you knew at the end of his life he would predictably become a custodian in General Motors, while you became more and more beautiful each year. Would you go through a midlife crisis?
Are you saying that this is what's happening to women?
I'm saying that this is what has happened. This is the core
So
of what is
men
happening.
marry the chairman of the board of General Motors.
In terms of beauty power.
And then in her 30s, she's executive vice president.
And then
in her 40s, assistant to the man in charge of marketing.
Right.
In the 50s, she's, I think we'll put her in personnel.
But Phil, I'm not saying this is my, I'm saying this is society's standards. You don't find in Ms. Magazine ads or any ads of the beauty, you don't find the woman who is a warm person internally, who's overweight, who's pimple-faced, but who has developed a good view of the world, who's a fine human being.
Well, you don't find a male that way either.
Well, you know, you do find men. I mean, Henry Kissinger and Woody Allen can both be overweight or short or Shamil-like looking, and they can be very much admired. But we don't give that type of status to the woman.
The point is that this is true throughout all societies ever studied by anthropology. This isn't something that we invented. That
and therefore what? It
imposed.
must continue?
Yes, it must continue.
It has been this way, therefore.
We have to understand the foundations of human life before we can learn how to elaborate on
Let this young
them.
woman make a point, please.
At 21, I made a mistake. I got married. Fortunately, I was able to get out of that marriage. I have since been able to remarry. I worked for quite a few years. I now have a lovely 2.5-year-old daughter. I couldn't be happier. I'm at home. I'm also in 7 years looking forward to going back to work again, at which time my husband's going to be able to take time off then to help take care of our daughter and all.
Now, what is it then that, with which observation do you take the most offense or
I definitely take offense at the idea of women marrying young, because I think that women and men are all very immature at that age. You have to gain some world experience and be involved with life a little bit more before you can settle with one person and say, this is it for life.
Is your child a girl?
Yes.
When would you like her to get married? How old?
I'd like her to wait till she's probably close to 30 years old. I would also like to think
she's really taking risks at this point.
But I know.
Because the male sex drive is overwhelmingly oriented toward young women. That's, again,
I was in my 30s, for heaven's sakes, and he came for me.
No.
Hang on a minute. What's the matter? We got him here in Connecticut, George. You got him.
At 31, I married a man almost 5 years younger than myself.
Right.
Hope my mother-in-law doesn't
What type of work did you do?
And
what type of work
at
did you do?
34, I started having children. At 44, I just had my last.
Wow.
I have not quit working. I fly every weekend for a major airline. My husband babysits every weekend. He's an executive with a major bank, and everything is just fine.
You're a flight attendant?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Now, hang on a minute. And he's 5 years younger than you.
4.
But he's an executive. That's the key.
He's what?
He's an executive with a major bank.
Well,
and see, the question we need to ask here, I would ask for a raise of hands. How many women here would feel comfortable marrying a man who took care of your children full-time, or who took care of your children for a little while and then worked part-time and then full-time while you supported him, the children, and yourself? Raise your hands. How many of you are doing it? Now,
Nobody.
Nobody.
Several
And
would
the society can't
I got a
work
break.
that
The
way.
music means we're long. I'll kiss your baby and thanks. And we'll be back in just a moment.
People who discover that Oscar Mayer smoke-cooked ham has always been only 25 calories a slice find there's always room for a new addition. When some people find out that Oscar Mayer honey ham has always been only 25 calories a slice, they dive right in.
Many senior citizens are able to experience the love and companionship of a dog or cat through a new pet adoption program offered free of charge by the Animal Humane Association of New Mexico. The Purina Pets for People program makes the benefits of owning a pet available to persons 60 years or older by covering the adoption fee, initial veterinary care, a gift package of pet care supplies, and advice on how to select a pet. For details, stop by the Animal Humane Association, 615 Virginia Street, Southeast, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
The world of a child, innocent, daring, and full of boundless energy. It's all part of what makes them so precious, and yet these very qualities make them vulnerable to accidents. Each year, emergency care providers respond to over 20 million calls for help involving children. Protecting our children is a big responsibility, but together, we can make a difference. EMS, we're people who care. This message brought to you by your state EMS office.
When a child starts getting into trouble, there's a cry for help. Sometimes parents don't see it that way. Small problems get bigger and bigger until...
I'm going out!
If you go out, don't you come back.
Fine, if that's the way you want it.
Juvenile probation volunteers can help bring families back together by spending time with the child. If you want to help, become a juvenile probation volunteer. Call 841-7388 today.
There was a time when an 18-year-old couldn't vote. A time when there was no meaningful way for young adults to express their opinions. What changed that? The 26th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution, the words we live by.
George Gilder, Men and Marriage is the title of his book. He says, among other things, marriage tames men. You believe we're, in a primal way, aggressive, and if we don't have this nurturing, children bring what? A moderating...
Yeah. And you can get a view of what men are like without marriage, single men alone with no women, through the homosexual community, which is extraordinarily promiscuous. And that's what single men are like. Homosexuals aren't radically different. They're like other single men who are essentially promiscuous until they're disciplined by the maternal sexuality of women.
What's the matter? Why men are the way they are. Warren Farrell's contribution to understanding who it is that your daughter just brought home, and is he good for her? Look who's here, direct from our lab. A real live male. Are you married?
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, then we don't have any time for you. Is there anybody else? You want in this?
I think these guys make too many generalities. The world is not exactly like they say. There are so many various types of independent variables that people fit into.
All right,
and I mean, it's crazy. How can you sit there and say one thing about this person, that person?
I think it's possible to give at least an overview to try to understand.
No, it's too complex.
So let's just all sort of jump in, go to work every day, and whatever happens, happens.
No, I mean...
that's a kind of an anti-intellectual view, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's anti-intellectual. I think you can't sit here and discuss the way people should be. People should do whatever they feel is right for them. And it's learned behavior. Parents teach their kids how to act.
I'm sorry, you're making a lot of generalities. Could you be specific about what you mean?
Well, you know, you had my brain going in circles there at the beginning. I didn't know where to go.
What do you think?
I think that what he said about generalities is absolutely true, because you are talking in terms of 1950 was the ideal world.
No.
Yeah. Women in their 20s got married, and they had happy marriages. The men didn't cheat. They had lovely little kids.
And we registered at Bloomie's, and we all got the same silverware from the plates with the American Eagle over the fireplace, and we had our little end tables. And that was a wonderful world for you, George. It's over. The world is over.
But actually, Phil, it was not a wonderful world for George's any more than it's a wonderful world. I just came back from Japan last week, and the men, people say men over there have privilege. Well, the men over there have the privilege to work 60, 70 hours a week, have heart attacks and deaths 10, 11 years.
That's what makes the world go round. That's what creates. That's what creates all the new technologies that sustain our society.
I have lots of wisdom,
gentlemen.
Lots of wisdom and almost no time.
I'm the mother of 3 children, and every day when I dress my 2 daughters, my son's too young, I have them look in the mirror and say, I believe in myself, I can do anything I want to do. And the last thing that I'm going to teach them when they do come of age to know men is to depend on a man or even a friend to complete their happiness.
Phil, let me ask you to
now, what are you going to do if they come home? You know, I can't live without him. He's my everything. I don't know what I'll do. I'll die without. What are you going to do? You'll have to lock her in the basement.
No way. I'm going to remind them what they've been taught all their lives to believe in themselves. It's in here. It is not in anybody else outside of you.
May I ask you to take that one step further? To ask your daughter not to think that independence is merely supporting herself, but that independence and equality is being as willing to support a man and the children as she expects the man to support her and the children.
What you get is female-headed families by that route. And the one thing female-headed families can't do is they can't raise boys. They can't. Just look at the best example of female-headed families.
What? I've raised 2 boys.
Is the ghetto. Look at the ghetto, folks, if you want to know what it's like.
I think that's a little more complicated, isn't it?
For different reasons, George.
What?
I've been married 19 years. This is my 17-year-old daughter. I have 2 boys.
Yeah.
And I'm the stay-home, bake cookies, but I love it. But I'm teaching my daughter, if she wants to go out and get a job, have a career, that's her thing. If she wants to home and be like me, that's okay, too.
Are you teaching your son the same thing?
I'm teaching my sons the same thing, right. I have one son that's 6. He's 7, rather. He makes the beds every morning. He takes out the garbage for me. My other son, he don't do anything.
Yeah, we all got a son like that. I don't know where they come from. We'll be back in just a moment.
When I start out my day, when I begin my night, I want to look special. It's easy with Estee Lauder's free gift collection. Yours with any Estee Lauder purchase of $10 or more, filled with makeup, fragrance, and treatment products, including white linen parfum spray and face powder with a brush. So I can try on a whole new look from Estee Lauder. This Estee Lauder gift is yours through October 10th at Goldwater's Cosmetics, Coronado Center.
Hungry Jack biscuits have so many tender, flaky layers, I just can't help myself. Hungry! Hungry Jack!
Don't have to yell, Ma. We're all in the same room.
Oh, you're Hungry Jack. Oh.
The Albuquerque Police Department has implemented a drug education program in the APS elementary schools called DARE. Together, we can teach the children of our city to dare to say no to drugs.
This was a presentation of Service Scope.
Well, United Way is the single largest contributor to the scouting program.
Thanks for giving to the United Way.
Well, everybody wants to support themselves and direct their own lives.
Thanks for giving to the United Way. Without the nursery school, many of our parents would have to go on welfare.
Thank you.
The United Way helps 100,000 people in the Albuquerque area every year. So if you've ever wondered who your donation helps,
Thank you.
give the United Way.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a catastrophe here.
What is it?
I got married in the 60s. I got divorced. I married an older man. Now I have a daughter who's 25, not married, falling right into this, and I'm approaching 50 and getting frayed around the edges. So what am I going to do?
Well, you're still dust around him, right? He's still in your life, this husband. All right. Well, all right. Hey, a real live husband. See what I mean? What are you worried about?
Because I have fallen, I think I'm a special person, but on this show I've fallen into every generalization there is.
I know, you need a shrink just after watching this show. We're not going to worry about you.
Very seldom do men leave women that they feel understand them at the core. Very few people ever find a human being who understands them at the core. When men do that to fulfill one of their fantasies, they usually find that that new woman does not understand him like she did, and they come back with their tails between their legs.
Yes.
All I seem to hear here is the families with one salary that can afford the best of everything.
Right.
What about the families who need 2 salaries?
That's most families, you know.
To give their children what they need.
I'm talking about those families.
I grew up in the Dark Ages.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I can remember my father saying to me, but Marion, rather than going to college, don't you want to get married and have children?
Yes.
Well, I was rather independent. I went to college, taught school, got married, had children, stayed home, and loved it.
You did love it. Yes.
I can't even fathom the idea of going to school for so long and not coming home to my house after I'm a professional and not, like, being considered inferior in my own household.
You wouldn't tolerate it.
I wouldn't tolerate it.
How old are you?
I'm 16. And it's just like, things are going to change because this is not the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
This
And
is not.
any boyfriend that starts this is history with you.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I worked hard with my ex-husband to send 4 children to college.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be ridiculous for them to just get out of college, graduate, and get married. I think they should pursue their careers.
May we assume that's what you did, get out of college and marry?
That's what I did. I was in the 50 generation that I was supposed to, quote, quote,
But
stay
you don't
home.
want your kids to do that. You wouldn't want them...
I think that it's ridiculous. I think they should see more in
I do
life.
too. I think so too. But George is telling us the longer they remain single, the more gay people we're going to have.
We
or
do.
something.
We do.
I think if
it's happened.
If we want to...
I'll give you a chance, I promise, in just a moment.
Get a taste of the unexpected. There's
Raisin in the middle. Kellogg's Raisin Squares. Raisin in the middle.
Kellogg's Raisin Squares.
What a taste sensation. Whole wheat, sweetened with raisin.
A combination with flair. A tasty little package.
With raisin in there.
Raisin in the middle.
Naturally sweet raisin.
Raisin in the middle.
Kellogg's Raisin Squares.
Raisin in the middle.
Kellogg's Raisin Squares.
And now apple cinnamon squares.
We asked this homemaker to help us demonstrate just how well the new Bissell Power Steamer really cleans. The Bissell Power Steamer has what it takes to go up against big, mean, nasty stains and spills. Its powerful hot water spray deep cleans carpets and upholstery, and we mean clean, no matter how big the job.
$178.88 now at American Home Furnishings.
If your car's engine were to stop, you probably know what to do to get it started again. The sad fact is, more people know how to jump-start a car than know how to save a life. Learn how to jump-start a life. Learn Red Cross CPR.
Call the Mid-Rio Grande chapter, 265-8514.
Our government funding was cut, and then United Way stepped in to help us.
United Way has funded us since 1935.
Without our program, many kids would not reach their full potential.
United Way is our Santa Claus.
And without United Way funding, we'd be in a terrible position.
Our agency needs your support.
The United Way helps 100,000 people in the Albuquerque area every year. So if you've ever wondered who your donation helps,
Thank you.
give the United Way.
Direct from its American premiere, the new full-length ballet Anna Karenina comes to Popejoy Hall for 3 performances only on October 2nd and 3rd. Nationally acclaimed Ballet West will dance this spectacular event, accompanied by the New Mexico Symphony with music by Tchaikovsky. Based on the famous Tolstoy masterpiece, the ballet is set in the romance and grandeur of Tsarist Russia. For ticket information, call the New Mexico Symphony box office at 842-8565 or toll free 1-800-251-NMSO.
Men and Marriage is George Gilder's work. Warren Farrell weighs in with Why Men Are the Way They Are. I don't want the life of gays to be made more complicated by what might have been interpreted as a flip remark by me. We're very proud of the reputation, incidentally, our program enjoys with the gay community. Your suggestion that there'll be more gayness because what? Because women, so-called liberated women, are marrying older men.
That is.
And leaving the males without partners, and therefore they'll become gay. Is that your thesis?
It's called polygamy, when powerful men can have a number of young women. It means that a certain number of young men mathematically are excluded from marriage. And under those circumstances, a gay culture tends to emerge.
Yeah, what's the matter? Yeah.
There are a few men in this audience. I want to know which ones want to stay home and clean dirty diapers.
Yes, I want to know that myself. Yes, ma'am.
I just feel that Mr. Gilden is so preoccupied with the sex drive of
the two partners that are involved in a marriage. Marriage is made up of loving, sharing, and caring, and most importantly, growing together in a partnership.
Which is still possible in your opinion. I totally agree with that.
I think that one of the...
That's not what you were saying.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
At Volvo, we've been safety testing our cars almost as long as we've been building them, because we want to make sure our customers keep coming back.
You can beautify and protect metal surfaces with quality True Test XO Rust Red Metal Primer, aluminum paint, and gloss enamel from True Value Hardware stores.
The Drake offers an exciting weekend in New York at a special price. The only Swiss hotel on Park Avenue. For reservations, call 800-DRAKE-NEW YORK or 212-421-0900.
Successful like a quarterback who's trained to be arrogant and self-centered, and very frequently as she falls in love...